Today is the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. It sounds nice that we should have a day set aside to celebrate Our Lady of the Rosary, but I think we need to really think about the history of this date and where it comes from, and also its effect on us in our present day and age. This feast comes between Our Lady's birthday, Our Lady of Sorrows, various feasts from September, and it comes just before the feast of Our Lady of Fatima. And Fatima and today are connected, interestingly enough. So a little bit of history in order to understand today's feast day. So back in the 7th century, 600 and some odd years after Christ, is when Muhammad had his little apparition from this angel where he got his Book of Mormon. He was receiving apparitions of an angel giving to him what we now know as the Quran. Now this should be first warning because St. Peter tells us in the Gospels that even if an angel of light appears giving a different gospel, do not believe him. Right? So, and the Quran is very, very, very different from the Bible. It is not similar at all, does not present the same, should we say, understanding of God. In the Quran, it very clearly teaches that Jesus is not God, that Jesus is just a prophet. He's not God. So there is a denial of Jesus Christ as the Son of God. So as Catholics, we would say that this is a heretical teaching because it denies the divinity of Christ. It also is very negative towards both Jews and Christians, and in fact promotes in there you can follow part of the Quran which speaks about the need to execute Christians and Jews. It is there in the book. When we read about these radical Islamic terrorists or Islamicists, they are merely being faithful to certain parts of the Quran. It does speak of living with your neighbor in peace, but it also speaks of the ability to kill the infidel. Even recently, when the Pope released his new document the other day, Tutti Fratelli, it was rejected by the Muslim who helped him write it because he said clearly that infidels, or not infidels, but those who are traitors to the faith should be executed. So he disagreed. It's just part of the religion. It always has been. And when Muhammad himself became a tribal warlord, he in fact persecuted both Jews and Christians and personally killed many of them. And this began a bloodbath for the next 1400 years. People talk about the Crusades, the Christian Catholic Crusades, as being this, somehow it was the Catholics who got together an army who ran down to Muslim countries and trying to force people to convert. Just the opposite was happening. Over the centuries, as the Muslim faith spread, it began to spread by the sword. It was convert or die. We see this still happening in many countries. In Nigeria the other day, there was over 200 Catholics killed by Muslims in the name of Allah. With the 9/11 attacks, this was based upon the same ideology it has been part of the current of that faith since the very dawn of it. I'm saying things very politically incorrect right now. I'm sorry. That's just history. But not all Muslims are terrorists. Not all Muslims do this because you can follow those other parts, but it is the history of the bloodiest battles of the centuries had a lot to do with this part of it. The Crusades were gathered together in order to release and defend those countries that had been overrun by Muslims, in order to free them from the oppression. That was the part of it. Now, there's all kinds, not that all the Crusaders were always good. They weren't. They had strict rules they were supposed to abide by. So that's another story for another day. What I'm trying to say is that the Muslim faith has always been conquering by the sword. And part of Spain for 100 years had been conquered. And finally, they were driven out, and they had some freedom in Spain from this incoming invasion. Well, in 1571, the Muslims wanted to reconquer their territory they had in Spain, And so they gathered together over 471 men on ships to come and destroy Spain, and then eventually make the way through Spain into Europe and turn Chrysostom into one large mosque. And it was a great threat. The Catholic League was organized by the Catholic countries to somehow defend Christianity in Europe, but they were outgunned, outboat, outmatched. There was no way they were going to win this battle at sea. And the Muslims were approaching through the port of Lepanto in Spain. And so the Catholic League did their best. They got the Franciscans to be chaplains on the boat. You didn't think I'd miss an opportunity to throw the friars in that, did you? They got the Franciscans on their boats as chaplains, and so the friars said, if this battle's going to be won, then all of you men need to go to confession. And so they all went to confession, they all went to the sacrament, and then they began to pray the Rosary. The Holy Father called for the praying of the Rosary, and miraculously, somehow, they won the battle, and Europe was defended. And they defeated the oncoming Muslim navy. Miraculously, outgunned, outmanned, outboat, and they still victory. And the victory was given to Our Lady. It was credited that it was through the praying of the Rosary that the battle was won. And so today was to be declared as the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, who through her powerful intercession protected her children, protected the Catholic faith. Now, I say this is connected to Fatima. How could this feast day be connected to Fatima? Well, we need to look a little bit at the history there. I hope I'm not boring you with a little history this early in the morning. But in one of the, again, early attacks against Portugal by the Muslims, the King of Portugal raised the army of the Portuguese and fought and defended Portugal. And the king of the Muslims was killed. His daughter was with him, whose name was Fatima. The Portuguese king found her so beautiful, he fell in love with her, and he married this Muslim girl, who became Catholic. And so this princess, he marries her, and they're married for about a year when she dies, and the king is heartbroken. So he names all of his land, all of his territory, he names it after her, Fatima. And so the territory that this king had specifically set aside, he named for his formerly Muslim queen who had become Catholic. And he called her name was Fatima. The king was so heartbroken, he entered a monastery and lived the rest of his life in a monastery. That's how much he loved her. He surrendered the throne. He went to the monastery and just spent the rest of his life in prayer. Now, in Fatima, when Our Lady appears many years after that, just 103 years ago, right? 1917, 103 years ago, when Our Lady appears there. So finally, after months, after 6 months of appearing, Our Lady finally tells the children her name. And she says, I am the Lady of the Rosary. Why would, of all of her titles, why would she choose Our Lady of the Rosary, when that title was directly connected to the defeat of the Muslim, the protection of the faith against the Muslim armies? And she's appearing in a town named for a formerly Muslim girl, Fatima. So I'm wondering, and I'm pondering myself, if Our Lady was not reminding us that we need to continually be praying the Rosary for the conversion of sinners for peace, but also for the conversion of the Muslim people. We don't hate Muslim people. We don't hate anyone. We should never hate anyone. It should be love that draws us to pray the Rosary for them, because we want them to experience the full revelation of the gift of faith. You see, as Muslims, part of the Quran is that they do not see themselves as children of God. They see themselves as slaves of God, owned by God, property of God, not as children. It is illegal to call God Father in a Muslim country. Under Sharia law, if you call God Abba, you will be executed. because he is not Abba, he is Allah, he is Master, not God. We know the Lord to be the Lord, but he is also our Father. He's God to them, but he's not Father to them. And so I oftentimes pray for the Muslim people that they come to know Jesus Christ, come to the waters of baptism, and be freed from the slavery of seeing themselves as slaves, and come to know God as Father, that they might know that they are not property of God, but the children of God, that they may come to the adoption and the beautiful gift of being embraced by God and adopted by God. So today, as I give you a long history this early in the morning of the Muslim faith, the Battle of Lepanto in Fatima, basically what I want to say is pray the Rosary. That's today's message. Our Lady truly loves us, and the Lord has given her to us to be a mother. It's God who has assigned this to her. God loves to share, and he shares things particularly with those he wants to see glorified. And so he shares this powerful intercession with his Holy Mother. So today, as we think about the Blessed Virgin Mary, this gift of the Holy Rosary, the power of the Rosary, we're reminded to pray the Rosary. To pray the Rosary for peace, as Our Lady told us at Fatima. To pray for the conversion of sinners, as Our Lady reminded us that many souls go to hell because there's no one to do prayer and do penance for them. To pray for the conversion of nations, that there might be peace, particularly to pray for our Muslim brothers and sisters, that they might come to know the beautiful gift of baptism, enter the waters of baptism, and come to be freed from seeing God as merely Allah, Master, and come to know God as Abba, Father. May God bless you and Mary keep you.